Hello, everybody. Woo! I didn't pay them, I promise. Thank you. I did offer for Princess for me to be at her wedding so I could go la 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 as she walked down the aisle. I don't know why she didn't take me up on that, but I did offer. So, I just want to put these down here. Isn't this amazing, ladies? Wow. So all this talk of royalty, I'm sure that many of you, your thoughts have gone to things like Jackie spoke about last night, the big royal wedding. Shame, Harry phoned me to invite me, and I said to him, Harry, how can you do this to me? Of course I can't come. It's the Durban Sparkle. What do you think? And so he said, I think we need to change our date. But Megan wasn't going for it, so they've stuck with the date. But I'm sure our minds go to things like scones and cream, cucumber sandwiches, Buckingham Palace. But I think every single one of us, when we think of royalty, will think of a cup of tea that is drunk very much not like I would drink tea, because I'm so clumsy, but very much with the pinky finger in the air, sipping a cup of tea. And I am sure that in Buckingham Palace, there is royal fine bone china. I hope I've said that right. But there's really good quality teacups. And they must spend a small fortune on just teacups, I'm very sure. And so as I started thinking about this royal teacup, I thought, you know what? This royal teacup, it didn't start as a royal teacup. God didn't say, okay, on the 8th day, I created royal teacups. It actually had to go through a process. And so this treasured teacup that I'm making such a fuss over this morning, it started as a simple blob of clay. Yes, it started as mud. Something that nobody pays attention to. Something that actually you would probably kick around or step on or just throw around and just not pay any attention to. And that is what this fine bone china teacup would have started as. But thank goodness that that same clay got into the hands of a potter, because that potter knew that that clay, which was nothing, could actually have the potential to be such a beautiful teacup. And so what the potter then did is he got out something similar to this, I think. Okay? No, it is not to hit your husband over the head. Okay? It is to roll out that clay and to shape it and to spin it around a bit. And I hope you don't mind, but as Helene said, I am a drama teacher before I was a chaplain. And so I'd like to just personify this cup a little bit. Can you imagine the potter now pushing it around, flattening it, rolling it about? It's probably going, stop, leave me alone. This is a bit uncomfortable. I'm used to being a blob. Leave me as a blob. Stop trying to roll me out. Stop trying to stretch me out. I'm quite happy as a blob. And you know what the potter would have said to her? Not yet. And then, this potter wasn't giving up. He would have now taken it as the flattened, whatever he had done with it, and put it on a spinning wheel. It would have looked very similar to the dancers on this crown last night. Going on a spinning wheel, and can you imagine going round and round and getting so dizzy that she would have said, take me off. I feel like I'm going to fall off. I'm dizzy. This is not comfortable. And the potter would have said to her, to the cup, not yet. And then, girls, it gets even worse. He would have put her in a furnace, a hot, firing kiln for the pottery to go hard. And I'm sure that at this stage, the teacup would have been screaming and saying, I'm going to die. I can't handle this heat. It's too much. Take me out. Take me out. And he would say, not yet. And eventually, he would take the cup in its form that it was out of the furnace and put it on a shelf to cool. And what a relief that must have been. Oh, I can breathe. I'm out of that fire. But that wouldn't have lasted very long. And the potter would have got out his paintbrush and started painting all sorts of colors over this cup. And the cup would have said, "Oh my word, those paint fumes are killing me. I feel like I'm going to choke. Please, please stop." And the potter would have said, "Not yet." And so, again, after putting all these beautiful colors on the cup, he pushed her into a furnace that was twice as hot as the one that he first put her in. Now, she was at the point of actually giving up. There's no hope. I'm definitely going to die in this fire. The first one, I just escaped death. I just escaped being burnt. This one is sure to kill me. And just as she was about to give up hope, she shouted, "Potter, Potter, let me out." "Not yet. Please let me out." And eventually, he let her out. And he placed her on the shelf again. But this time, when he placed her on the shelf, he handed her a mirror. And as she took that mirror and looked at her reflection, she was flabbergasted. Because for her, she was a blob of clay. And now, all of a sudden, she was a beautiful teacup that was going to be used in Buckingham Palace. How did that happen? What had happened to her blob of clay form that she knew? And right here, sitting in front of me, are so many fine bone china teacups. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to tell you why I believe that. And it's because God has spoken a certain verse over this conference. He has said, sorry, can I just quickly, my throat's getting dry. Sorry, I drink like a princess. Okay. But you are God's chosen treasure. Yes, you are. Just as the potter picked up that particular blob of clay, he chose that blob of clay because he knew what it can become. So has God chosen you. He's chosen you to be a treasure, not a blob of clay. Not a blob of clay that was going to be walked on. Not a blob of clay that is going to be kicked about and just used and stood all over. He has chosen you to be a treasure. And then it continues in verse 9 to say that you have been set apart as God's devoted ones. He has set you apart to work on you. Just like the potter set time aside, took that clay and worked in it until it was a teacup. God has set you aside to work on you. That is how precious you are to him. He called you out of darkness to experience his marvelous light. And now he claims you as his very own. The potter took that blob of clay that had no purpose. It was alone. It was not wanted. It was rejected, perhaps. And in that dark place that blob found itself, he took it into a place of light, giving it purpose, giving it somewhere where it can know what it can become. Perhaps you're in a dark place and you've been trying to find your identity in different ways in that dark place. Maybe through different people or different ways. And just as at the end of the process, the clay was aware of what it was purposed to be because the potter had done such a great work with it. The potter would have claimed that teapot as his work of art. And in the same way, God takes us out of that dark place, like this verse is saying. He takes us out of that clay blob state, and he takes us into his amazing light where we realize he is our creator, and we realize all the purposes he knitted in us when he knitted us together in our mother's wombs. And in that way, we experience his marvelous light. And he takes each and every one of us, he molds us, and he shapes us into what he purposed us to be. And as we go further and further from the clay blob darkness into his light, we go through a process of having our identity purposed in him and centered in him. Because he is the one shaping and molding, not anybody else. He is the one shaping and molding us in his perfect way for his perfect purpose for each and every one of us. And it's because we are his daughters. We are his princesses. We are the daughters of the King of Kings. We are not a blob of clay. We are royal princesses who are his treasure and have been set apart by the King of Kings. That is who we are, not blobs of clay. I'd like to look at 6 different categories which happened in this process of the teacup, which show us that our identity needs to be centered on Christ and Christ alone. So the first one is the clay blob. Maybe your whole life, somebody or people or situations have told you, you are a clay blob. And that is all you're going to be. You are mud, you are nothing, you're going to be walked on for the rest of your life, you are regarded as nothing. And so, instead of walking in this marvelous light, you have listened to those words. You are not living in the purpose of being the princess that you were created to be. I'm so glad that I didn't listen to clay blob people that told me that because I'm not the right size woman, I will never go anywhere. Because I was abused as a child, nothing can happen with me. Nothing will become of me. I'm so glad that I listened to God instead. And today, God's voice and his actions, promised myself I wouldn't cry. His voice and his actions need to speak louder today. Louder than those voices you've been listening to. And you know what his voice is saying? His voice is saying, you are chosen. You are the chosen one that has been set apart and my treasured one that I have purposed to be a royal princess. And his actions are wanting to shape you into that royal princess. And so from this moment on, Clay Bob is history. Royalty is our future. Just like we sang last night, I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. You are not going to turn back and look at that clay blob because she's no longer part of your life. In verse 10 of 1 Peter 2, it says, at one time you knew nothing of God's mercy because you hadn't received it yet. But now you are drenched with it. You are so drenched in God's mercy when you give your life to Jesus, you cannot stay a clay blob. You cannot stay the same. Many of you might be saying, you know, Jen, this sounds all great, but how do I even start the process of leaving this clay blob state and moving into my so-called royal princess that I should be? It's very simple. Give the blob to the potter. Give your life, your whole life. We've been speaking about surrender this morning. You need to surrender your whole life into the potter's hands. Just like Jackie said last night, she would have given her wedding dress back to the dressmaker. He knows what he's doing because he created you. He knows what to do with your blob. My second point is holding back. Okay, Jen, I've done that. I've given my life to God. I'm in his hands. But I have no idea. But at the moment, I feel like I'm out of control. I feel like chaos is reigning my life. Where is God in this? I want to take you back to what happened with this and the clay. Imagine what that clay felt like. I've often asked God to roll out a few areas, which would be quite nice. He doesn't seem to listen. But your chaos might be just like that clay felt when it was first getting out of its comfort zone. And God was doing a bit of stretching, and God was doing a bit of rolling out. And so, you are shouting, God, I'm not ready for this. This is way out of my comfort zone. Just hold on a bit. This is very different to what I'm used to. And you know what he's saying to you? Not yet. Not yet. And so, when it feels like that, when it feels like you want to hold back, it's just too uncomfortable, I can't go there. Remember that God is stretching you. He's shaping you. It's a process. Let him do it. He knows what he's doing. And when he says not yet, listen to him. Hand it over to him. Trust him. He knows what he's doing with you. I remember when I was little, I had a friend. We're actually still friends. His name's Ross. He was my best man at my wedding. Yes, I had a best man. Okay? And he and I used to make clay things together. We used to live near a river, and we used to take the clay, and we used to make clay things. But the clay that we used to leave, the next day we used to go and have a look at it, and it had been sitting in the sun for a long time, and it had gone all brittle and like gone all crumbly and broken apart. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you don't hand over your blob to God, when you don't let him do this process. It's going to leave you brittle and broken and dried out. Rather just hand it over to him. My third point is rotation. Jen, my world feels like I've lost it. I'm so dizzy, I feel like I'm on that spinning wheel with the clay. I feel so unsteady. I feel like I'm confused at times. I've just lost control. I want to say to the potter, stop spinning the wheel. But you know why the potter told the clay not yet with the wheel? It's because if he stopped spinning at the wrong time, all that clay would have just crumbled into little pieces and fallen all over the place and had nowhere to hold on to, and it would have been chaos. Let God make sense of your chaos. He has a purpose. When you give that spinning and that dizziness and that what seems to be out of control to him, he shapes it. He's got it. He's holding it. Like the potter is holding the clay on that spinning wheel. And what's so interesting about the clay on a spinning wheel is that you have to, those of you who do pottery, I hope I've got this right, but you have to put the clay in the center of that wheel for it to do what it's supposed to do. We need to center ourselves in Christ for us to make sure that we are in him while we are in that spinning. So he's got us. Did you watch those girls last night? Caro Kern was hanging on. I would do it for you. I taught Caro how to do that. But she said I shouldn't because then I'd outshine her. But when she was hanging there, she was hanging on to the King of Kings. And when that whole thing was being spun and her world was being spun and with all those other dancers, she was firm. Did you see? She never moved. Her legs were up, something like that. Okay? And she was firm, not dizzy, not out of control, still spinning, but firmly holding on to the King of Kings. Fourthly, intense heat. Jen, my world is beyond spinning, you say. I'm right there in that hot furnace. I'm also yelling, get me out. I'm burning. I feel like I'm about to give up hope. I'm in the heat of my situation and it's too hot to handle. I feel like it's killing me. And every time I ask God to take me out, he's saying, not yet. I'd like to give you an encouraging verse this morning from Malachi 3, verse 3. He will sit like a refiner of silver, burning away the dross. He will purify the Levites, refining them like gold and silver. I want to rephrase this a little bit for us this morning. He will sit like a refiner of silver, burning away the dross, all that unworthiness, all the shame, all the hurt, all the pain that is no longer needed to be a part of you. He will purify the ladies of Sparkle 2018, refining them like gold and silver. Give God your fire situation. Allow Him to refine you and not burn you. Allow Him to purify you before you give up. If the potter took the cup out of the fire when it was asking to be taken out, before the right time, it would not have been as strong as it could have been. In your time, let God strengthen you. Let Him give you the strength as He refines you and purifies you into His royal princess. My fifth point is sparkle. The teacup moaned about the paint fumes. He moaned about the color that was coming into his life, her life. And maybe God is putting a little bit of color into your gray world that you're so used to. Your gray blob world needs a bit of color. And it's because He has brought color into your life. But you are saying, you know what, this is a bit too bright. I don't really like bright clothes. I'm joking. I love them. And if everything clashes, it's the best. And so I am a rainbow personified always. And Jesus puts that color in our life. And sometimes we say, you know what, we don't want to stand out. It's just too much. God, you know what, if you do that, people are going to notice me. They're going to notice that something's different to my gray world. You know, I don't want to be in the limelight. I don't want to be that right yet. Of course they're going to notice you because Jesus has changed your gray world. Jesus has put color in your world. He's brought you into His marvelous light, and with His, He's drenched you. He's drenched you in His mercy. And no one, nobody, even if they don't like color, can stay gray through that. Do you know that a rainbow, okay, I Googled this, I didn't know it in my head, is created by the reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light in water droplets, resulting in the spectrum of light spectrum of the rainbow that we see in the sky. So when we reflect and refract and disperse His light through the water droplets of His grace that He's drenched us in, we cannot help but show rainbows. We cannot help but show the color of Him. And when we show that color, we're showing a princess. We're showing what He created us to be. My last point is our true identity. Maybe today, God is handing you a mirror. And you've taken that mirror and you're like, God, I'm no princess. You're showing me that, but I'm a blob. How can you be showing me I'm a princess? There's no ways that is the right reflection. And He's showing you this, but you still have a clay mentality. You are holding on to that mentality, I'll get it right. No, God, I'm just a blob. God's princesses are for other ladies. What you're showing me, I can never reflect. Once again, ladies, God's voice has to speak louder. You may have had all those voices telling you differently. I remember I had a bit of a bully at school, and for some reason, I don't know why, but she wanted to bully me. And so she used to tell me that I looked like certain people. So when we were walking along, she used to say, Jen, you look just like that person. And I'd go, oh, okay. And then she'd say, oh, you look just like that person. And it was a couple of years ago, I was walking in the mall with my husband, and I said to him, Sean, that's the girl that I look like. And he looked at me and he said, you look nothing like that. I said, no, that girl told me I look like that. And so I had believed a lie. There's nothing wrong with that girl, but I believed that I looked like somebody else. God is not a liar. And when you don't believe him in the reflection that he's showing you, you're calling him a liar. And he would never lie to you. It's impossible. We sing that song, I am who you say I am. I've always wanted to sing on stage. I am who you say I am. Can you say that with me? I am who you say I am. Nobody else. And that's a princess. And if you look at the 6 processes I've just been through with you, they spell Christ. Clay Bob is the C of Christ. We center by allowing him to change us. The H of holding back. Let God reshape you and remold you. The rotating is the R, the intense heat, the I. The sparkle, the S, and the T, your true identity. Our identity is in him. Nobody else. It is in Christ. And this morning, you might find yourself in any of those categories that God has got you in. Give it to him. Let your identity be in him. Secondly, you might be saying, I'm in that stage where God is saying, not yet. And Jen, I don't have the strength. I don't have the strength to stand the furnace. I need to find my identity in him. I don't have my identity in him. And I don't have the strength. I need that. And thirdly, you might have never accepted this King of Kings, this potter who wants to take you in your blob state that you think you are as mud, and he wants to make you into a royal princess. Maybe last night you made that commitment, and today perhaps you want to make that commitment and say, God, here's my blob. I want to be yours. I want to be your princess. I want to ask the band if they can come up, please. And as they come up, I want to encourage you ladies that as we go into a time of worship, that if you find yourself in any of these categories of just saying, you know what, I cannot carry on in the situation I am. I need someone just to stand with me and pray for God's strength. Or you might just say, God is saying not yet, and I need you to stand with me and pray with me. Or you may be saying today that my life needs to be handed over to the potter. There are so many ladies here in front who would love to stand with you. We'd love to pray with you. And so as the band starts playing, I'd love you please to come forward. Can we stand together? So if that is you that I've spoken about this morning, please don't feel ashamed. Don't feel embarrassed. That's what we're here for. We're here as ladies to encourage each other, to stand with one another, to support one another, and to pray that the potter comes and takes over today. So please come forward as we start worshiping.